When it comes to exploits in video games, I usually think of crazy glitches in speedruns. An exploit is an unintended mechanic or glitch that gives the player an unfair advantage. Sometimes it may be the unintentional duplication of a certain item, or maybe the player is glitching through a wall to get to a later point in the level. That begs the question, however, how could this be applied to the Nuzlocke challenge? At its core, the Nuzlocke challenge is a way to play Pokemon while simultaneously making it more challenging. The challenge usually consists of two key rules: only being able to catch the first Pokemon seen on any given area or route, and permadeath on any fainted Pokemon. Nuzlockes run a bit deeper than that, with added-on rules and restrictions to make the challenge runs even more challenging, as well as completely modified versions of existing Pokemon games that ramp the difficulty up to the max. Pokemon Run and Bun is a ROM hack of Pokemon Emerald created by Dexa that is widely considered to be the most difficult and grueling Pokemon game ever created. As of the time of recording this, there are only 63 fully recorded Run and Bun champions, many of which use the exploit known as the Tate and Liza heist. Firstly, it's important to understand something about Run and Bun's late game. After teaming up with Steven in Moss Deep City's Space Center to take down Team Magma's leader Maxie, you get access to the Dive HM, which allows you to dive deep into the late game waters. By diving into the abandoned ship, you get the Scanner item, which can be traded to the scientist in Slateport City for any one of 5 very powerful items, with the caveat being that you can only have one of these items at any given time. And each fight this late into the game tends to look a little something like this. Okay, that's a lot of yapping, but what exactly is the exploit I've been hyping up so much? Run and Bun is designed in a way where the player is given useful items throughout their journey that progressively get more and more useful as the game goes on. But that's the thing. These intentionally placed items are the only way to get them in the game, and in most cases there is only one of each of them. There are some small exceptions, like certain wild Pokemon being able to hold items like the Magnet and the Black Belt, but in 95% of cases the player can only get one of every held item. The player does get access to the move Covet, which normally deals damage and steals the held item of the opposing Pokemon, but the creator completely removed the ability to steal the item. In other words, it's just a regular damaging move now. There really isn't any way to steal these valuable items throughout the entirety of the game. However, veteran Nuzlockers KTZ385 and Tyrone Smith theory-crafted a strategy involving the very niche moves Skill Swap and Roleplay, the former of which swaps abilities with the target, and the latter copying the target's ability entirely. There are only a few Pokemon in the game that get access to Roleplay and Skill Swap, notably Kecleon, which is a guaranteed encounter in Fortree City. Skill Swap is also available as a TM, but not until getting access to Dive, which is after getting the 7th badge. There are a ton of powerful abilities that the trainers in Run and Bun get access to that you don't, and being able to copy them and set up unique plans revolving around them can be really cool. The key to setting up this exploit sits deep into the Moss Deep Gym against the 7th gym leaders Tate and Liza. In the original Pokemon Emerald, Tate and Liza are a double battle, the first ever double battle gym leaders in the series actually, but in Run and Bun it's replaced with a back-to-back fight with no healing in between against these two destructive teams. This entire strategy revolves around Tate's Hoopa and how exploitable it is. If we take note of Hoopa's learn set, it's equipped with Hyperspace Hole, a psychic move, Shadow Ball, a ghost move, and Aura Sphere, a fighting move. All 3 of these moves have one thing in common. There is a type that is completely immune to each of these respective moves. By bringing a dark type that's immune to Hyperspace Hole, a normal type that's immune to Shadow Ball, and a ghost type that's immune to Aura Sphere, it's possible to completely PP stall this Hoopa out of all of its moves until it can only substitute. That's exactly where this strategy starts. By pivoting between these immunities until it's out of all 4 of its moves, including substitute, you can safely switch into your Skill Swap or Roleplay Pokemon to copy Hoopa's ability, Magician. Magician normally isn't available to the player at all, because as we've established, stealing items from other Pokemon is not intentional in the game's design. However, by using Roleplay or Skill Swap to copy Tate's Hoopa's Magician, we're able to steal their held item, Leftovers. Leftovers is obviously a great item in its own right, but why is this so huge? Well, remember the scanner items from before? The Leftovers are one of those 5 key items, and since we stole an extra Leftovers off of Hoopa, we're now able to have 2 scanner items at any given time. This is obviously incredibly powerful. The amount of fights in the late game that become significantly easier with a second choice item or an extra assault vest is astronomical. Not to mention being able to bring 2 scanner items to the Elite Four, rather than having to carefully choose which one is most important for the gauntlet. This strategy was definitely one of, if not the single biggest discovery in the Run and Bun meta, but one Nuzlocker actually took it even farther. In Run and Bun's late game, a small group of legendary Pokemon start to roam the map, including Latios and Latias, and they're obtainable by the player. By1Mill, one of the most prolific Nuzlockers in the entire scene, devised a strategy that would not only steal the leftovers from Tate's Hoopa, but also the Soul Dew off of Liza's was Latios. Soldu is an incredibly strong item. It can only be held by Latios and Latios, and it boosts their special attack and special defense by 50%. That's equivalent to having a free Calm Mind boost at all times that doesn't go away on Switch. Stealing this item and managing to get Latios as one of Buy One Mill's roaming legendaries would be an absolute lock for the Elite Four, and an incredibly strong Pokemon for the rest of the game. The strategy is exactly the same at the start, with PP stalling Tate's Hoopa and stealing the leftovers with a Pokemon capable of copying its ability, but it diverges a bit against Liza. Most importantly, Liza's Tapu Lele and Mega Metagross need to be dealt with. It's crucial that the last two Pokemon in the back are, in order, Hoopa Unbound and Latios. The way Buy One Mill achieves this is by leading Mega Beedrill, which is one of the single best Pokemon for this strategy and in the entire game. I have a video going over what makes Beedrill so strong, and I'd highly recommend checking it out if you're interested in run and bun strategies. A single Poison Jab knocks out the Lele and brings in Mega Metagross. This late into the game, it's totally reasonable to sack Pokemon, especially when they've run their course or peaked, and Buy One Mill decides to sack Kecleon to Metagross, allowing for a free switch into Infernape to pick up the Revenge KO. This perfectly baits in Hoopa Unbound for a Zen Headbutt, which a Dark type perfectly takes. Another pivot into Beedrill on an Aura Sphere allows for another U-turn to break Hoopa's Focus Sash back into Drapion. This baits another Aura Sphere, which sets up this strategy perfectly. Similarly to Skill Swap and Roleplay, the ability Trace completely copies the target's ability, but only a handful of Pokemon get access to it. In this case, Gardevoir has the perfect defensive profile for this strategy to work. Gardevoir can safely swap into the 4x resisted Aura Sphere holding the Roat Berry, an item that deals an 8th damage to the opposing Pokemon if the user is hit with a special move, like Aura Sphere. This accomplishes a few things. It, for one, KOs the Hoopa Unbound, but it also allows for Gardevoir to trace Magician from the Hoopa onto herself, while simultaneously keeping her healthy enough to not risk any critical hits against the incoming Latios. Furthermore, the Roat Berry is a consumable item, so once it's used up, it's gone completely, freeing up Gardevoir's held item slot to prime herself to steal Latios' Soldu. From here, a single Moonblast from Gardevoir chips Latios and steals their item, allowing for Buy One Mill's Dragapult to clean up the legendary and perfectly pull off what is, in my opinion, one of the coolest strategies in not only all of Run and Bun, but Nuzlocking as a whole. Huge shoutouts to Buy One Mill, KTZ, and Tyrone for these strategies. Make sure to check out all of their channels. I'll be throwing them in the description below. Buy One Mill did end up catching Latios as one of their roaming legendaries, by the way, and they have an awesome video showcasing their Run and Bun Elite Four, as well as this entire strategy in a video on their channel. I'd highly recommend checking him out, as he's one of the most underrated content creators in the Nuzlocking scene. If you like this kind of video, let me know in the comments. I have a ton of fun new Nuzlocking videos planned for the rest of the year, so be sure to subscribe if you're into that sort of thing. Till next time.